After you warmed and cooled the image, now you want to make the next step, which is saturating and desaturating specific areas. So to do this, you're going to follow the same kind of steps you did in the last two layers that you made. You're going to make a new layer, and we're going to call this Saturate and Desaturate. And we're going to put the blending mode to saturation, like so. Now, this is where it's going to be a little different, or maybe a little bit counterintuitive than what you ran into in the last couple layers. And that is, to desaturate an area or to saturate an area, you're going to take a color that is not part of the area that you want to adjust. So in other words, if I'm going to saturate this green, I'm going to pick another color that's not green. Or if I'm going to saturate this red-orange up here, I'm going to choose a color that is not reddish-orange or around that. Okay, this is, again, might seem a little counterintuitive, but here I'll show you what we're going to do. So we go down to our color picker, and I just click on this, and notice that I can go in here and choose different areas. Now, what we're going to look at for this is we're going to key on, because we chose saturation as our blending mode, we are going to affect just the saturation right here. This is the number that we're really keen on. It's not affecting these two numbers. We're not affecting the brightness, nor are we affecting the color of the image, which is what we want. We just want to saturate that particular color. And I can do that by taking this, and notice what happens as I move this circle over. As I move to the left, you can see that the saturation percentage becomes less and less and less. And that's what we're keying on. We're saying if I don't want a lot of saturation for this, I'm going to choose a fairly low percentage, and if I want a very high saturation, I'll choose over here to the right and get all the way up to 100. So we're really looking at the saturation of the color, not the hue and the brightness. But again, I don't want to choose a color that is already there, because that's going to affect that. So what I'm going to do is pick a different color that's not in there. So again, just by clicking that, and I'll say OK. And you can see my color is showing up in my foreground background color box here. And I'm going to dial that opacity fairly low to begin with, and make sure I have my brush tool selected. And I'll just go in and I'll just start painting this area right in here. Okay, now to me that's a little high. Okay, that looks a little much. So again, you can always go back. If you did one brush stroke, you can go back to your brush tool and drop this opacity down even more. So to me that's typically what it would be. And again, you can see how it's kind of brought up that saturation in that area. I can do the same thing with, maybe this rock, and go in here. And, oh, see, that's way too much. You can see at 8%, that's a huge saturation value in here. But again, I can go in here, fade brush tool, drop this back. Okay, I can do something like that. Or, if I do a little bit too much, let's say again, let me go in here and paint over this again. You can see that's way too much right in there. I can also take my eraser tool and go back with my eraser and pull some of that back, like so. Okay, so that makes that. Now, to desaturate an area, there's not many areas here that are really desaturated, but for educational purposes, let me desaturate this rock. So what I'll do again is I'll click on my color palette and my color picker, and in this case, to desaturate, I want to pick a neutral gray value. And neutral gray, by definition, is when the red, green, and blue channels are identical. So you have the same numbers here. So let me just go over here and click on that. You see that is almost neutral gray. 111, 112, 112. I can make this a neutral gray by just turning this to 12, and there it is. There's my gray value, and I'll say OK. And I'll bump this up so you can see it. Again, make sure I'm in my brush tool, not my eraser tool from last time. And if I paint over this, okay, oh, I'm going to bump this up pretty high. If I paint over this, you can see how it's taking that color all out of there. Okay, it's really desaturating that area. Same way here. Okay, looks terrible. Okay, but I'm showing how you can desaturate those colors like that. Okay, let me step back. Let me go to my history, and let me go back here so I can start all over again. There it is. Okay. So that's basically how you saturate and desaturate.